Hello, my name is Christine G, and I am going to be going over this from Module 1, problem number 10, and it's 3.2.23-T. So we're given this data information, so the following data represents the weights in grams of a random sample of 50 candies. Determine the sample standard deviation weight. So this is kind of nice. We can just populate and do this automatically in StatCrunch. So we just click here and then open in StatCrunch. And then here are all the different weights. So in grams. So here what we can do is go into calculate and then, go into summary stats and then columns and then choose the variable. You'll notice it's marked var1, so that's what we want. And so here we have standard deviation in this list, so I'm okay with that, and I'll just compute it as is. There's some other things as well. So standard deviation is 0.07, and that's what I put for the answer, 0.07 grams. And then let's see. The next question asks us, on the basis of the histogram on the right, comment on the appropriateness of using the empirical rule to make any general statements about the weights of the candies. And definitely it's that bell-shaped curve, and so the empirical rule can be used. Then we're asked to use the empirical rule to determine the percentage of candies with the weights between 0.7 and 0.98 grams. And then they give us the mean, the sample mean is 0.84. So what we could do, because we've already calculated the standard deviation, we could just add the mean and then add 0.07 to 0.84, and we'd have to add that twice to get to 0.98 and then subtract the 0.07 twice from the 0.84 and then come down to 0.7. And that would be 95% of the data. But let me go ahead and let's take a look at it on in StatCrunch, and we'll go that route to take a look. So stat calculators, and then we go into normal. So this is for the normal distribution, and important here, you want to click between, and then we're given the mean of 0.84, and then the standard deviation is 0.07, and then we're asked to find the percent of, let's see, 0.7 and 0.98 between those two numbers. Is that right? 0.7 and 0.98. And all we're doing is, and so that's 95%. So this area of the curve is, this area under the curve is 95% of the data. And you can see only 100% would be if it included everything. So 95%, so let's go ahead and see. So we put 95% and then determine the actual percentage of candies between 0.7 and 0.98 grams inclusive. So let's take a look. So here, what I would do is, it's just asking us to determine the percentage. So let me go and sort this. So I'm just sorting the columns. So from 0.7, so that's including 0.71. So from 0.7 all the way to 0.98. So that would include 100% of the data. So that looks good. And then use the empirical rule to determine the percentage of candies with weights more than 0.91. So let's go ahead, we'll use StatCrunch for that. And then instead of between, we're just doing it one direction, so greater than 0.91. Is that what it said? Yeah, greater than 0.91 grams, and then we calculate that out. And then that would be, if we round to the nearest whole number, it's a percent, so it would be 0.16 and then 16%. So we have 16% right there. And then determine the actual percentage of candies that weigh more than 0.91. So here, the empirical rule, it's, you know, estimating based on the bell curve. And then they're asking to determine the actual percentage, and we have to do that with the actual data. So we'd look again at the column, and then we'd look for, there are 50 data points, so 0.91, oh, more than 0.91. So we just count these up that are above 0.91, and so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 6 divided by 50, and when I rounded it, I got 12, so 12%. And that is it. Thank you so much for watching, and please reach out to me if you have any questions, and have a great day. Thanks.